aircraft, aeroplane, machines flying over a plane do not account for curvature. My body doesn't. 8 miles. The deepest we've ever been is 8 miles. You can look that up. So we don't know what's more than 8 miles because our drills will not go more than 8 miles. None of our technology can go beyond the 8-mile limit. In Russia and America did a drill project in the 90s called the Kola Deep, the Kola Super Deep. And they gave up. They said we cannot make any more progress down here. 8 miles is it?
Is it a line, Magellan, or?
Yeah, I think Magellan, they would have sailed all the way around. And I can sail around London.
Is it very cold, huh?
Well, there's some areas, there's some debate about that, and I was just going to talk to you about this. Is that this idea that the sun is only ever going around here for thousands of years is not necessarily true, and that is that it's shifting, just like the pole shift. We know that the poles shift, yes. Well, the sun. Okay. Sorry about the technicals there. Whoop, I'll just turn that down. How's my audio? Let me just check in before I get carried away. I was throwing in a little bit of Speaker's Corner action from Sunday. Epic session. So I just want to check in on the audio. And Andrea's not here tonight. She's with our daughter. Just taking an opportunity to spend some time with her. Before we head off to Spain. Actually, I do enjoy that opening track from Alex Michael. It's very relaxing and easy to listen to. In fact, I was listening to him just yesterday. We had a conversation about some planning for the party in September. Really looking forward to that, and I know a few people who are listening to this channel are coming along. So. That's exciting. It's going to be good fun, and if you're still sitting on the fence about coming along, then let me know. I think sure you'd be welcome. I don't know if I get like all the messages. I should say hello. I think my audio is alright, even though I haven't heard a thing. Thanks for the thumbs up. If you have, Squirrel Sniper, nice to see you. Hi Liz, Iron Maiden, and Sven. Nice to see you, Bon. Saw you the other day in I think a live stream, perhaps. Bass Ackwards. You miss Andrea. Yeah. I know. Well, for sure. I said to her, you will be missed tonight. We have 2 different flavors, she and I, and so, she adds value and a different perspective. So I will miss her tonight. But actually, the We Gather thing is really cool, and as we said last week, it's nice to get feedback from people in person, even that, it's nice in the comments too, but in person that it's a value, and so certainly that she wasn't here tonight, I didn't want to miss the opportunity to come and chat, and keep the momentum. She'll be back next Friday, I think. She'll be back next Friday for sure. I'm thinking about we move house in a little while, but it's not next Friday. It'll be the Friday after that, but we will be elsewhere, and that elsewhere is yet to be clarified and resolved, and it is the same weekend as Hope Sussex do their annual festival, which I would recommend people consider coming to if they are in the area. You can get a day pass or a weekender for camping. We are debating as to how many days to camp. and but in the following week, or a week after that, we will be traveling through France and Spain. So hoping to see some friends, flat Earth friends in France, and then spend some time in the mountains in Spain, and obviously also in Javier, where we are going to be having this event. And the Friday afternoon is like this kind of informal. It's all informal, of course, but it's like this off-piste opportunity for people to come together and just chat together. And I'll bring some banners along, and maybe Howard Stirrup will bring some stuff. But I'd like to try and do a little bit of street activism there, just for the fun of it, for people to kind of, if they want to participate. If it's not that important to me, so it's not like it's a huge thing, but some people might like to join in on something like that, and just have a chat or two with the odd passerby, assuming language, no barriers are not a factor. David Callahan. Dave, the world are looking for a mad alien from somewhere for stealing all the atmospheric air supplies, and all I was doing was singing a few tunes in the kitchen. All right, David. I was doing a little singing myself, actually. I was lining up to bake a cake for my mother-in-law's birthday, and discovered that I didn't have sugar. And being that this is London, and our car gets charged £12.50 for every time you leave the driveway, pretty much, in London nowadays, it does cause one to curtail the frequency with which you might leave the driveway. So I've put that off. But I was enjoying, that moment, where, because normally that's Andrea's domain, but because she's away right now, I've been tasked with baking the cake. And actually, truth be told, I'm pretty handy in the bakery department. Not croissants and things like that, but a standard sponge cake I was doing when I was young. And so yeah, that's that. And Squirrel, I hope. Well, I mean, we must get in touch. This coming week, not this coming, the week after, we have some gap in our timing, and we'll see where we are. Audio is good. I don't know how far. Oh, thanks. That came a while. I had a real crowd standing around. This is from Sea Lightning. How you doing? And hello, Territ. And Ailing. Nice to see you, 717. I had a good crowd around me at Speaker's Corner. Yeah, I forgot I was going to... I thought, okay, well, let me talk about that. I was going to, for the first time, I never do this. I've done it maybe once before, or twice, possibly in all the years, but I'd said to Luke, if you wouldn't mind downloading the video from Speaker's Corner on Sunday, because it was actually really good. For a few hours, 2 or 3 hours out of the 6 hours, I felt like I was in such a nice groove. Even though we had, there was a physicist who kind of, gave me a good run for my money, in terms of, and this is, obviously what he was doing was bouncing the argument away from the water and the spin and so on, and into specifics, particularly to do with gravity, I think. And I don't know about you guys, but the more I think about it, the more I'm certain that the force that I express upwards on a thing, whether it be this pen or this piece of paper, the force that I express on it is going to have an effect. I mean, if I push it that way, then it's going to, the direction is going to tend more quickly towards the ground. But if I throw it up, with a certain amount of force, it is in this atmosphere going to come down with a measured speed. Now, things like this that are not very heavy can tumble. They can, create drag and resistance, and therefore you can measure minute variations, I think, in that. But we can take these things to a much higher altitude, 5,000 meters, and find that they will drop more quickly because there is less resistance. Some things it's barely perceptible because the dominance of a lead ball, for example, in this environment, in this atmosphere, is so great over the atmosphere that it's displacing. Then the variations are negligible, such that it's almost impossible, or perhaps impossible, to register such difference accurately. So that's really what it is. And of course, this physicist is insisting that, I'll see if I can find the clip, is insisting that it it's now, once I've thrust it into the air, it's now gravity that is now pulling, come back and pulling that down, even though it's not pulling the helium down. And if we were on a ball, then all the helium would go to the top of that place, wouldn't it? But there's no top. There's no top, they tell me. But everywhere's the top. So helium, like, it squinges out this way from South America and Australia and whatnot. It squinges out this way, and then sort of attaches itself to 50 kilometers or something. It gets there, and it just it's going to stay here, and this lot's going to stay here, but these are not going to join up. They're just going to stay as this perfect little circle of atmosphere, because my pencil fell on the floor. But I did have a good conversation with a lot of people, and it was an interesting one, because for years I haven't had that many people around me in Speaker's Corner. Perhaps it's South Africa last that I had such numbers in audience. And sometimes it's interesting to kind of have that kind of experience, but people are coming in and out of the conversation all the time, so it's not, you end up you can't necessarily just construct a story, but yeah, it was fun. And let me see if I can go to my browser. I think this is in my browser. Let me just close this and just check. So obviously, I think so. Let's see. If I go to this, yeah. So I don't know if this audio is going to work out.
Energy is also coming off that center, and sometimes it's going to melt areas that are currently covered in ice. We've got globes from the 1600s that show Australia covered in ice from the 1600s, that there was no ice. But equally, we've also got globes that show continents or land masses in Antarctica, that when they do ground penetrating radar in the modern times, they found, wow, they know exactly what the land mass looks like underneath this ice. How is that possible? But we know in the mainstream, they'll tell us that we have ice ages, we have cooling, we have heating, and so on. Yes, we absolutely have that, but it may be because the oven, which we call the sun, slowly...
I never watch myself, by the way, so this is a little creepy for me.
Hindus, they all said the earth is like a flat, and it has levels to it. There are levels, different heavens, and all of this sort of thing.
How many levels?
7. Some say 7, but I like the idea that it's 7. I wouldn't argue against that. But what we can say for sure is that our measurable Earth does not have curvature. We are not going down and around under the ball. The water is always level in your bath, in an Olympic swimming pool, in a lake. Doesn't matter how long the lake is. The only thing that you will do is lose things that are off in the distance. Like the train in the distance is small. As it comes closer, it gets bigger. The same is true with the ship. As it goes away, it gets smaller. But yes, because you're standing right at the bottom on the beach, looking at that ship, the bottom is what you lose first. As it goes up and everything compresses, right, you lose the bottom. But if you go into a 10-story building right behind you, you'll find you can see the ship much further, and you can still see the bottom of it when your friends are telling you on the beach it's already gone over the curvature.
There's another line.
Another line.
How do you calculate the time zones on the platform?
To unpick, once you are all against each other, colors, nationality, religion, all of these sorts of things. If you realize that it's all a game, then you do not support Russia. You do not support Ukraine. You do not support Israel. You do not support the games that they're playing to trick you, to hold your soul, to steal your soul. And so it's about coming back to that. Because if you've just discovered that your father was murdered by your uncle, doesn't that mean now that you face that truth, that you can realign yourself in terms of your relationship with that uncle?
Who's playing this game?
Well, that's a big question. People often finger the Rothschilds and the Roman Catholic Church, and there's other groups, perhaps even non-physical entities might be in control. But these are things that I have to speculate. What I see is the result of the murder. I see the crime being committed. Do not make it my responsibility to solve the crime for you. You are the center of creation. This is your universe. This is your sun. This is your reality. And so therefore it is up to you, incumbent upon you, to be your own savior. Not to seek savior in Donald Trump or Jesus Christ or in any of these other...
Whoa. That guy is getting like full on there, man. I haven't gone through that video. This is the first time I'm seeing it, and I never typically watch back anything that I've done. 99.5% of everything I've ever done, I've never watched. For whatever reasons, that's probably my own. And I'm not, oh, well, that's so good. Because actually, by looking back at things and seeing how you did, can stimulate improvement. I said to someone earlier this week, don't let the wake steer the ship. And that I think is true. However, we can learn from experience. Anyway, philosophical perhaps, but I did, thanks boy, I did do it again actually. I don't know what things came together on that Sunday. Obviously, I'm going back next Sunday and the Sunday after, weather permitting. I did get rained out at the end of play. You might have seen that at the end. It just started pounding with rain. I got quite wet. I went home on the train with a wet shirt. I didn't have any backup, but I called it there at 6.5. But I don't know what it was, what came into alignment, what the energies were, and so on. But it was good because I had a diverse group of people, and at times, and then there's a group of Polish school children. There must have been 50 or 80 or 100 of them. I don't know, a large group, and some of them had coalesced back around me at one point. So that was good. One man raging about there being other things more important, that 500 Christians in Nigeria or some other place near there, I forget now, had been murdered. And that for him was, there was no point in flat earth discussion when things like that are happening. And it's interesting because I don't fully disagree with him. Because there are atrocities and horrors and things being wrought on mankind in different theaters, and we sometimes, just like the majority of people out there, just kind of blithely go on with our lives with little to no consideration about that. But like I said to the guy, there are so many of these things happening that whether it's 1 or 10 that you're focused on, to become so focused on those, so vexated by those things that, and this is just my suggestion. I think everybody must do what their heart tells them to do. I'm not the one to say what it is, at what point someone should make their mark, say their peace, express their outrage at what's happening to mankind. Who's behind it? Is it the Rothschilds? I'm sure I said later on, I said Zionists. I should not shy away from these things, because it's these things that you cannot speak of that are really, truly, if we're going to speak truth, then it's these things that have to be spoken. That there is something, and it may be beyond them. It may be beyond these people that have some combined agenda across the world, from China, Russia, Europe, and the Americas. That they have an agenda, and they have a master, or some kind of builder, some architect who is designing an outcome. And I think it's right that we have righteous indignation and rage at what is being committed upon the creation. But it's like any process. It's like you have to move through those stages, the lower stages and the middle stages, and then kind of moving into sort of more peace and acceptance, and kind of then, still warrior, but building something that is, of light, and not beating the drum for the darkness. That's what I think, and I mean, it doesn't mean that I get to a point where I'm like, oh, well, I never stand in the street and tell people that they're being hoodwinked. But when I do it, to come at it from a place of I'm pretty cool with it, whatever, you don't have to agree, and you can laugh and snigger and sneer. Easier said from the basement, as it were, than when it's on the front line. I can assure you, those people who've come along and said, oh, it's fine, and then they're getting heckled and shackled and whatever else, and they find this, wow, it is a triggering thing, and that's good, because we do need that trigger. We do need to be triggered if we are to master our own energy, emotion. So it was a fruitful day. I think that I planted some seeds. Honestly, I think that there were some seeds planted. Some people who already thinking about it. And in the case of those 100 Polish children, or whatever number, some flyers were handed out to a few of them, and you hope that a little spark goes into the, they're all on a tour bus, no doubt, or a few tour buses, and you're hoping that the flyer's getting passed around. No matter how much they're mocking, the day will come when one or a number of them will remember the conversation, and it'll be like, maybe I do need to check that back myself, because that other stuff they just told me turned out to be a pile of horse poo. I met a young lady in the park who had she expressed rage to do with and I've actually been sitting with this week, actually, but she had rage to do with while I'm thinking about it, I just need to say thank you to those 3 people who sent me coffee. I appreciated 4 Jacks, and Mark Swarbrick, I appreciated, and there's one other whose name has escaped me, who sent me 25 coffees. And to you, I want to say thank you so much, because it was like a powerful day. And, those guys, Mark and 4Jacks, who have been regular coffee buyers for us, for me, and I appreciate that very much, guys. But this was like a new kind of, whoa. And it kind of underscored for me what had been a really powerful day, and a really genuinely good day of activism in the heart. And this young lady, she says, how dare you say that we're all born good? There's rapists, I can't probably even say that, but there's all sorts of like dark people, and that's true. And I kind of defended my position with, the puppy example of putting, puppies in a cage and not enough food, and they start fighting each other, and they become, and then there's the rat house experiment from the 1970s, where once they had, a couple thousand rats in a 3,000 rat house, the behavior all started getting weird. And so I had said, I think you've got to remember that we've been put in cages generationally, and behaviors and so on are consequential, a little bit like the rat house example. But I have been thinking about it this week, because we have also said, and I think most people will agree, that the nature and nurture conversation is it's a combination of both. It may not be 50-50 in some cases. It might be more swayed towards the nurture, and other times it's more the nature. And the sins of our father come to mind, because we are frequency and vibration, and we bring that, we pass that. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, so we pass that down the line, and then we raise our children with that same state of mind, and oftentimes the same diet, obviously same religion or same sort of belief set, but the same diet. And then people, the reason why we have this thing that we have is because of a family genetic thing. Well, it may also be because your family has been eating the same thing, which may be, a part of the problem, or not eating a certain thing, which is causing an imbalance in the system, right? But it's fair to say, and I think that's why it's, the reality of this world is that horrible things are being done. Some of them are being done by what you could call the psychos, who sort of seem to have had control for some centuries. And some of it is being done by the nature of creating a ghetto mindset. And in that ghetto, some will fall to dark stuff more than others. I mean, that ghetto could be Westminster, the level of insane criminality within, the sort of more like, I don't want to get into politics, oh my gosh. It's such a festering cesspit. And there's people who believe, and hopefully none of them are listening to me, that believe that Donald Trump was going to, drain the swamp in 2016. And I remember a guy, a lovely guy actually, his name is Rich, and he has a channel called Mr. Thrive and Survive. And he and I were due to have he'd invited me to a hangout on his channel a few years ago, because I had, right in 2017, the first few sniffs I had of the Q, I was like, this is bollocks. This is more bollocks, right? But a lot of people got caught up with that. And now still some will be making, and I don't think, people in this rabbit hole or this part of the conversation will think that. But there are many, 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 many people who are still making excuses for their Trump. I've said it before, and I don't mean to be crass, but I do sort of, I know there's a story being played out, and I do kind of want I believe there's a story being played out. It seems that way, but I do want it to play out. Things will be what they must be, and if we've got 5 years, and before the big kind of changes, and I now that I'm saying that, I also don't want to be, oh well, I'm thinking like this is like the end. I don't think like that. I don't think in terms of that. Although if I'm in my most dystopian kind of mindset, then it's more like just that the crunch of the citadel has become so intense that living in it is asphyxiating. It's like, ooh, this is, there's just so many, and I'm not saying people can't, cities are big places, and there's lots of little rabbit warren kind of, neighborhoods and whatnot, and, people will carve out, human beings are very clever and creative, and they will carve out things for themselves. However, I feel more like, it'll be the citadel is died, and then, out in the country, people will have a little bit more latitude. Well, then I think about my friends in France who, during the lockdowns, there are, 5 people on a mountainside kind of thing, and they've got, neighborhood watch, plastic policy officers standing down the road, making sure that they've got paperwork to give them a reason to leave the house. It was a stupid time, and the stupid continues, of course, and it seems that, that just jumped right way back to the beginning. That wasn't helpful. Here's the lady. My goodness me. How's that for incredible? This is
He's going to create that in some. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But I could take one baby, I could take twins from one mother and have one beautiful boy and one wrecked boy.
Is it nature or nurture?
Combination. I think that we carry a frequency in our family. We are vibration. And so if your father was a very violent man, even if you never met him, that vibration, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So that vibration will need to be assuaged in your lifetime. Yes, because the sins of our father applies. We carry the vibration of our community. There are communities here who make women do things that you would find abhorrent, but for them it's normal, So, we are this messed up thing that men are, the way that we are messed up. There's a great experiment that was done in the 1970s where they took a rat house and they filled it with one...
Okay, you don't need to hear about the rat house again. We already spoke about that. I'll find another bit of video in the meantime. That young lady, actually, I think you can see her here. Not there. See, every time I jump back here, this lady here, it's interesting because she was like really annoyed. I could tell that. I felt her energy, and I kind of just naturally kind of met her where she was at, caring, not like, not harsh. Anyway, this is the scientist guy. I mean, I don't know. He came back later and shook my hand and said he enjoyed the interaction, and we should have another chat next time he's in Speaker's Corner. I think this is what oftentimes people do, particularly if they've got like fairly deep science, is they will try and wrap you up in the, this is the observation and this is the explanation, and there can be no deviation. And so, it was a little bit kind of more terse than perhaps I would have liked, but no matter, it was good sport. It cost me, I think, some people watching, to be honest, and that oftentimes people actually don't mind that. Like a guy like that will actually be wanting to come in because he's like, this guy's telling too many people stuff I don't want them to hear, and so they will come in and spoil it on purpose. Or subconsciously.
Maybe if you've got the time to research, like I said, look into this Tierra de Eso thing, because people you've heard of.
This guy is very interesting. He's done some traveling himself, and yeah, he's kind of like, I think he's saying agnostic about the shape of the Earth. Not that it's not a globe, but he's agnostic about it. But you know, he knows most of the flat Earth kind of rebuttals to the globe and stuff like that. But he did say something interesting that I
They're all disproportionate. So it might be that there is a hidden land there that nobody's allowed to go to, but it's on these old maps. And it isn't just the four part in the centre, it's this area of the East.
A couple of things. Have you seen the globes with Australia covered in ice?
No.
Where Australia is not on the globe at all.
No.
It's all like covered in ice. And then Newfoundland in Canada, you know, the word Newfoundland makes you wonder whether it wasn't some area that melted, and then all of a sudden the continent or the land masses that were beneath the ice are. And the same is true with that. Is that I speculate, and I have done for most of my time in the flat Earth, is that the sun doesn't have to stay on exactly the same track. We know in nature things go through seasons. So we learned about the precession of the equinox being a 26,000 year cycle, right? Well, what if over 26,000 years the sun sort of does this flower of life so that it's opening up different parts for a few thousand years?
I've heard this theory,
and then melting, freezing at the same time.
It comes from some of the ideas from the how do you say it, the Prague clock.
And
it's moving around, and this bit's going to be covered now. I
was talking about that just Friday. You know, even what's his name, Gaddafi. You know, why didn't Gaddafi put a newspaper out, buy a newspaper in the West and say, "Let me tell you the truth about what's going on in the world"? I just don't get it.
Yeah.
So what do they know? What does Tim Peake know? That what if you were in the military and you're like,
I got an idea for you.
All right,
it's that they plan on inheriting the kingdom in the center. They plan on going there. There's maybe a cyclical apocalypse type of thing. I believe in the divine though, so I think it's biblical, but maybe they're trying to get that land for themselves. You remember this whole idea back in the 1920s or whatever, they were seeking the Northwest Passage?
Yes.
All this nonsense? Like, why? Oh, we find a little shortcut between Canada. Are you serious? They're trying to find the way to the north.
Right.
You know, if you're familiar with when Jesus talks about the narrow gate, right? He says, broad is the way and wide is the path to destruction, but narrow is the gate. And I think he's actually talking about a strait of water. It's called the Strait of Anian, which is between Siberia and Alaska. This is the idea. I think some people's ideas is they're trying to build this army to capture that land for themselves so they can get eternal life or something. They've got no chance of getting it.
That's fascinating.
And keeping us out of it. You know what I mean? Like you were saying about an evil force on the earth. I definitely don't think the powers that run this world are doing anything for a benefit. Not for a second.
Is my first prize. I think that's clear.
I've got a question for you. So you know how all of the countries in the world, they can't agree on anything, they're always at war and always at things, but they've all agreed to not, like, for some treaty with Antarctica. Like, can you explain, like, what would their motives be?
Well, I don't want to drag you guys through the whole thing. I'm not sure, you know, later on there's, you know, big crowd, relatively speaking, of course, big crowds, and just like a really, you know, it is about, you know, where you come from, I guess, the energy that you come from, and then equally, yes, what is it? What is the purpose? You know, why are we here? You know, what's the point of all of this, and why the big deceptions? I think, like that guy was saying, the Scottish guy, he speaks very well, and you know, there is this kind of inner I want to say sanctity, but that's not the word. This inner silence or stillness, centering and harmony. Honestly, if I am vexated by stuff, and you know, it happens to all of us, but if I spend my time, a lot of my time, vexated by stuff, you're the one who decides what that stuff is, clutter, then I cannot achieve the harmony that I'm meant to achieve. And really, like, if I was the devil, all I would be doing is trying to shake the plate, you know, keep the ants off balance. Those that stop watching the Netflix and the sport and the porn, the gambling, and those who, get involved in seeking the truth, then, well, let me find ways to keep them entertained, missteer them in all sorts of directions. So that makes me think about the 24-hour sun thing. I still find it hard to believe that was faked. Still comfortable with the idea that it's either true or not. Certainly doesn't change the scale, the industrial scale, mega industrial scale of the game that's being wrought upon us. And I think it's not, all the horrors and all the terrible things that are happening, and there are, and at the local level, taxes, people being the taxes we're being kind of robbed of, and the cost of living that is just going to become ever more challenging for the average man, woman, household. It's not to kind of downplay those things, because those are real, and there are travesties and tragedies abound. But there is still this divine, and as that Scottish guy was saying, we are this divine spark, we are this divine essence. I'm certain of that. And ours, I think, is to find peace, stillness, but still to be, producing, still to be creating. We create best from a place of love. Look at those Dr. Emoto ice crystals. Our cells respond better to a petri dish of love than a petri dish of fear or anger. So I know that that's part of my journey, to be not a warrior, WORRIER warrior, but a warrior, WA, who is in a state of restful peace with the nature of things here. Knowing that by my example, I'm stealing from Jesus' quote there, but by my example, am I to affect any change, whether it just be in my own microcosm or beyond. I don't need to steer any of that. That will work itself out simply by me being as present as I can be. And I cherish hard work. In fact, the other day, this week, actually, I happened upon an old friend who I'd never been to his house before, but he invited me to his house and the other day, and he has a severely disabled son. A number of children, but one of them severely disabled. Did I mention this before? I don't know, maybe I mentioned it on Sunday, but because I'd offered, he got a small garden, and it was a bit overgrown. So I offered to go and do a little bit of gardening for him, just as a gift of time. Because, well, his time in his verve was such that it was like, oh, it's a chore. I can't really, it's a big job. Getting started, la la la. It's, that can feel. And for some reason, I just sense that if I threw 4 or 5 hours down there, and I was thinking maybe doing a bit more than that, but anyway, it turned out that on Tuesday I did 4 hours, maybe a bit more. And what I didn't expect was that he would come and join me to work in the garden, which was awesome because I was happy to go and do what I could by myself. But he was like getting right stuck in there. And by the end of the day, he was so chuffed because, albeit a small garden, we removing some heavily growing things and a few smallish fruit trees that were crowding each other. It made quite a difference to him, his garden, his sense of his space in his garden, and his state of feeling. Like he was cock-a-hoop. And he's like, wow, you've got me. Like, you've got the rusty wheels have been, greased and got in motion. And he's, he was all like planning ahead to like how he was going to do the next steps, that he wasn't going to need any more help from me, that he was good to go. So yeah, that's how one can, just an example, I guess, how one can make a difference, and hopefully that it has a ripple, the butterfly effect. Andrea has been doing some really beautiful posts on Instagram, and thanks Hippie Shake for sharing all the links. But she does some beautiful posts. She spends a lot of time and thought and builds these pretty posts, something that I don't have the natural attention for. And I know she's offering a masterclass coming up soon. I don't have the dates to hand, but she's doing a masterclass soon, which might suit some of you. So if you want to check out her Instagram for more information on that, then feel free. So maybe I should say hello to the chat room. We got some good view counts on Sunday at the peak. We hit 40, 45 or something, and for this channel, that's pretty good going. So grateful if you watched. I know obviously you can't really watch it all. It's 6 hours. But there was, for me anyway, personally, and I don't want to sound boastful, but it was, for me, it was some of my smoothest delivery. And for a while there, I was on a little bit of a kind of like, oh, this is a bit like Oxford back in 2018, where it just flowed. There's been so much, so many bumps, so much fluff in the way. We'll see where it goes. So there's some Liz the Iron Maiden is. Did you hear that Scottish accent? Beautiful. Mikey Smith has a free download for Flat Earth pamphlets. You could add anyone's website, including Trinity's, and pass it out to people. Well, that's thoughtful. And the Flat Earth thing that's a great idea. That people have access to a resource that they can use. I sometimes give myself a little bit of a hard time because there's times when I could, like back in the day when I was much younger, we would do some flyering for a little bit of money, and we'd go around all the parking lots and put a flyer under the wiper. It's probably a rule against that nowadays, but there are opportunities for people to do a little bit of kind of at their local shopping mall or whatever, and just get 100 cars done before the private security say, oh, you can't do that here. We're when people tell me I can't put chalk down on the road, and it's like, it's a weird and natural thing, I suppose, but you're trying your best to help mankind. I see Cami in the chat, the Glowbusters have been, that's their endeavor, is to help mankind. And I know they get a lot of abuse, so they can write books and books about it. From people who are flat earthers and people who are not. But yeah, you're just trying to help, and you're getting people having a go pop at you for people you don't know. So just putting some chalk on the street. Some human beings grow up to be just horrible. I agree. And that's why, in the prison, in the material realm that we find ourselves in, the nature of things right now and here is that we need some of the organs of control, because you can't take them away. You can't take I watched a horrible, and I'm kind of sorry I did actually, I watched one of those true crime things last night, and I was still thinking about it today, and actually it occurred in England. A young girl and a co-worker. I can't speak of what he did, but it has troubled me a bit today, to be honest. And so there for any sorts of reasons, nature and nurture, there are all sorts of damaged people, or people who even like sometimes a situation will bring a person, a wife, to do something to the husband, or vice versa, where it was brought about by years of a particular thing that they didn't stop doing, like they didn't leave, because it's so hard to leave in some situations that people end up staying. And then they end up doing things that, are wrought from of that experience over the years. So there are black evil, dark evil souls here, and I started to question myself this week about that. Are these some carrying a spark of something dark from a previous incarnation, or that there is they live, and it's maybe too simplistic to put it into a they live context of Ashkenazis or Khazarians or whatever, one side, and then everybody else on the other side. I don't think it works like that. And I mean, if you think of Zionism, it's it's largely probably not even Jewish people that are Zionists. It's a weird thing. So yeah, because I think in the collective psyche there are these dark pools. I don't know. It's one that I don't feel like I could ever have a really fixed view on and say, well, it absolutely has nothing to do with external kind of forces in play. It's all about how the father and the son, the experiences of them have, and the society. Let's keep that one open, shall we? We don't have to be absolute about these things. We know for sure that there are dark, and aside from police corruption and government corruption, there are in your town and city and so on. There are dark actors doing dark things, you know, whether they're just doing it because they're like, you know, making money as a drug hustler or something, or a crooked this or whatever, or the psychopath, you know. So we need to be able to protect ourselves from that. So yeah, I do thank. But if you haven't heard me say this already, I do thank people for the support. By the way, it has been amazing all the way through. Tony Whitcomb, nice to see you. Hey, Jolly Man, nice to see you, mate. Thanks for stopping by, Sven. Thanks for your support as well, by the way. I appreciate it. I'm still driving on the fuel that you put in the tank, which is great. Tony's got 4 delivery drivers into FE. Minimum effort, good week. I wonder if there's like a, you know, because we were reflecting, I don't know if you were here earlier, Tony, but we were reflecting about, I was reflecting about how it had been like a fruitful speaker's corner. Like there were more people willing to listen. Don't know whether it was just the positioning of the banner, the day, the energies in the sky, whatever. But people were more willing to listen. So that you can convert 4, or not convert, but get them into FE. That's a very good week. Sea Lightning is Sea Lightning is definitely Mikey Smith's biggest promoter. Good for you, mate. Warriors come out to play. Cammy is tough. She's amazing. Her walk is also challenging. FR333 man. Interesting. I wonder where that name, how that name comes about. Trinity for All Man is how I once called my channel. All Man is a play on my surname as well. Trinity for Man. Trinity for Africa briefly when I lost my channel in South Africa, I think. Or maybe I'd have changed it before I lost it. Yeah, maybe that. Now Liz makes a good point. You know, she wonders what awful trauma in childhood these evil people have endured and made them how they are. And, you know, and that's I guess that's the point that's uncertain for me, is that was it all about what was impressed on the child from birth, or is there a pre-birth imprint that gave the right set of conditions for the invasion in childhood, or the harm in childhood, to have created that? In the one that I listened to, I had to think like the parents of the boy, he was only 21, 22, still living at home. The parents of the boy who, you know, there were warning signs and there were events that happened in the years preceding that were alarming, and that their son still was so deep into the strange and disturbing things that occurred. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't hard to see all of that once obviously all of this unfolded. Crazy little sidebar on that is that the girl who's the victim, her father is like a detective or senior policeman in the area where his daughter is then ended. Yeah, and you know, wow, what a, you know, and these are things that when they happen, I'm like, oh, is everything, you know, is everything preordained? Was everything meant to happen like this? Because it's uncomfortable to propagate such a thought. And if it was you just had your daughter go through that, or lost your child in that way, but no, this can't be. No, nothing loving would have ordained such a thing. And this is where I get into these ideas that maybe it's not all, the God or the Creator or the essence that is what is here, isn't all she wrote. That there is this darker, and we call it, Satan. But some people might even be, the God that they're worshipping could be it. But don't think that's too relevant. Yeah, thanks, Finn. Oh man, Singe Man, I would, if I could. What do they call it? You got a portal thing, and you can just step into it and arrive in Los Angeles, in California, at 4:20. It's 8 minutes past the hour right now, so I think you jumped the gun, perhaps, mate. Mental conditioning can make people disassociate from their ethics. 33 man. Yeah. And I mean, mental conditioning comes across as like, someone sort of sat with one of those little spinny wheels and gone, look at me, only look at me kind of thing. But it's so subtle and in so many different ways that I think that's happening. Okay. Yeah. Reality is the best place to be, knowing no asteroid is ever coming. Yeah. Hi, Mighty Atom. Nice. Thanks for your support, and thanks for putting the links down. Hippie, hippie, hippie. Shake. Won't be able to stay in chat. My partner is in hospital, pretty serious. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that, bro. I have like a memory of like a deja vu, like this has happened for you before, but I could be mistaken. I'm sorry to hear that, and I do hope that she makes a speedy recovery. Jolly Man has the debunking BS. Cavendish observed 4 millimeters of movement between his balls, or two masses, in 1798. But in 1915, the ability to observe this was denounced with relativity, as Earth falls around the sun. I actually hadn't heard it like that. The thing is that, and that's great to know. The thing is that when you do the street activism, is that one guy will come along and say this is the proof, and then the next guy will come along and say that's the proof, and they probably wouldn't agree with each other about which is the right thing. Yeah, positive vibes and much love to your partner, Adam. I like that. Hippie Shake had a pure white dove visit our garden a month ago for 3 days. Never seen one before in 26 years. She took it as a sign of hope. I was sweeping the garage yesterday where we've got our few remaining possessions. And, we take up one wall of a small garage with our stuff. And the wind blows dust and leaves and things, and so I was sweeping it out. And as I was saying that, I said, we should be looking for a sign, or maybe maybe that we don't have to press anything. We're just looking for a sign or waiting for a sign. And in the dust there was a coin. I picked it up. It was a 20-cent South African coin. So I did think that was an interesting sign. Mental conditioning was about those actors in government. CDS is excellent at removing graphene oxide. CDS. I don't know what that is. Probably want some. Oh, 33 man is South African. I'm going to say, he's asked when I'm coming back to South Africa. The plan is to be there in October. That's the plan. So, and if I remember correctly, sorry I didn't remember your name. Are you the guy that's in Joburg? If so, I'll be landing in Joburg. So, when I did the gardening the other day, I did do some heavy lifting. That it's been almost a month since I did hard gardening work. Believe it or not, time flies. So I kind of pulled a muscle in my neck that has a grip on something up here, and I hadn't felt it for a few days. It's that, or the place we're staying at has got shit pillows. So I just thought I'd throw that down there. Francois equals 3 man. Oh, my friend Francois the farmer, the flat earth farmer, he's often in chat. His name is Francois. And he should be a free man. The white dove does mean peace, love, and new beginnings. Well, I hope that for you, hippie. I hope it's all new beginnings, and that we are moving through some interesting times, some really interesting times, and I think that a lesson I have learned, or continue to learn, from being 6 years on the road, 6 years in 200 different beds or whatever, who knows, that many different houses, certainly moved that many times between places. And obviously not like not like like a Saudi oil sheikh. So it kind of like, I mean, maybe this is how it is for some people who have like some kind of significant loss, is that it's like, wow, I can pick myself up despite that. I can make something good of this despite that. I think I probably reflected on this a lot when I was in South Africa, about how many joyful Africans you could meet in a day whose situation back at home would make you weep all day. So we do need to be in a position where we're finding joy from the things that we do, you know what I mean? And we're less connected to this insanity. And we're less invested in this insanity. Huh? What do you say, my friends? I am back at Speaker's Corner on Sunday, so quite early as well, I think. So look out for that. Well, Jollyman, you're about to melt my brain with calculation infinite alpha series negative functional math. I'll leave you with that. Yeah, a bad pillow does knock. I know. I've got this pillow that I swear to goodness, it's like someone put 3 or 4 socks inside of a bag, and they're like, "Yeah, you go. This will be comfortable." Dear Lionsgate, you mentioned that at the beginning. Is it 8-8? Are you comfortable with, is it really the 8th month? Because I believe 8-8 it's the numerical Lionsgate, those numbers. I'm not well versed, Liz. But if our calendars are off, and the numbers, the first month isn't January, it's March or April. They're saying, and it's meant to be in months and 13 of them and so on. Then when is 7-7 really? Is 9-11 really? Is it, I like the idea, don't get me wrong. But like at the same time, it's like if I'm venerating something that is like, oh, well, we gave you that date. But if it's about an alignment that's in the sky, then the alignment in the sky can be trusted, because that's signs and seasons. That's what it's there for. Eh? I don't know if you guys enjoy, if you've enjoyed the other content today, because it's obviously not usual for me to be dropping my own stuff from the past, as it were. Oh, I think that these were interesting, chaps. They might have been Christians, actually. Have a look at these quickly. Oh, that's not it. Keeps jumping right back to the beginning. You can tell just by that. Look, it's like there is a smug. You are such. He's looking at me going, do you even know how to tie your shoelaces and how to spell your name?
19:1, he set it up firm upon pillars. But let me riddle this for yourself. If helium cannot be held at ground level by the gravity that you claim exists, yes? Helium, can we agree that? Helium is not held onto by gravity. Helium will shoot up, yes? Yes. Now, if we live on a globe and gravity is not attractive to helium, because it can't be, if it's not attracting it down here, you can't claim it's attracting it up there. So you can claim that, but common sense will say that if I can't hold you here, I'm not going to be able to hold you 20 miles away from me. So I'm saying this, that if we lived on a globe and helium is unaffected by gravity, then it should all gather at the top of the ball. Not be, it's going to go out here, perpendicular there. But yeah, I mean, I keep these things on the table. There's a lot we do not know. Our realm is metaphysical. It's not physical. It's not solid. It's all electric. It's all electromagnetic.
Everybody is fake.
Do you have a religion?
I don't.
Okay, so the Christian teachers are not lying to their people or themselves. The Muslim teachers are not lying to themselves or their preachers or their flock. They're not. Do you think they are? About their religion, you don't believe it.
They have faith.
Yeah, and so is it's true.
And that's what you
And they truly believe it. And so with the globe, we truly believe it, even though our senses tell us that water is level. And then when we try and measure this curvature that's meant to be there, we find that it's not. That we can make observations of 10 and 20 miles ourselves, just with a camera you can buy in a store. You can go and see things at 20 miles. So the world record photograph in Guinness Book of Records, so it's not going to be a fake. 245 miles. So where's your curve? Well, if you say the ship...
Where's my curve? Yeah, sorry. I can't put you guys through that. You have to, if you want to watch it, you can go and watch it. It was one of my better days in the field for a very long time, and it was nice to to have experienced that. And I shall look forward to doing it again. And we're doing Andrea and I individually are doing a talk at a festival in Sussex on Monday the 25th of August. I invite you to come along. I think I mentioned this the other day, so I'm being a bit of a braggart. But there's a guy coming along there because my content was sent to him, and he kind of broke the spell. So that's going to be a bit of a highlight, I expect. And then, as I said, we've got the old Gurus Gathering in Spain for 21st of September, 20th, 21st, 19th. We'll be doing some frisbee on the beach and stuff like that. My sound is a bit low. Oh, I think I've got this little mic here. Maybe it's pointing the wrong way. I don't know. Maybe that's better. Sorry about that. Hey, Run Boston Bear. Nice to see you, brother. Run Boston Bear has a 5-year-old daughter and 3 other lovely children and a lovely wife. But 5 months old, who is obviously being brought up with just amazing parents and an amazing opportunity to grow up without so many of the encumbrances of our world. Did I tell you the story the other day of Zizi encountering a boy who's like, "You don't go to school? What's 1 + 1?" And by the time he got to like, what's 16 or what's 32 + 32, he was okay. And then Zizi just kept reeling off the doubles after that until he got to 8,096. I should have got him to start giving us some numbers in binary. Childhood for me, the more I think about it, the more, obviously in the position that I think of things now, childhood for me should be about fun and growing through fun, learning through primarily enjoyable experiences. We do not need to put children through trauma-based mind control to learn. You can learn that way, of course, and my military experience, my high school experience, where we were caned if we didn't do our homework or fell out of line or whatever. It's probably not necessary, but certainly when it comes to the young years, I think that I see that by my engagement with Alexander, it's easy. My engagement with him, my language, my expression, my conduct, blah blah blah, talking about numbers, talking about things, looking at different plants, whatever. There is so much learning to be had in that, and I'm so grateful that I've had these years to be so close to him so much of the time, such that he might learn through, there's a word for it, isn't there? But osmosis or whatever. It's just like it's not a sit down and write these 100 lines out now and so on, So anyway, so yeah, I do think that, and the more that we can do that for our young, the less that we are. Can you imagine saying? I mean, if we said from now on, what is going to happen is that for X number of years and X number of hours of years of your childhood years, for all the elephants in the world, all the new baby elephants are going to be taken from their mothers for X hours per year in their most formative years. Can you imagine the outcry that there would be? But of course, it's so normal now. It's like what we do. Run Boston Bear is giving us the rundown of his small clan. I think he's got a plan to repopulate the Earth post changeover event. Alexander has a wonderful teacher. Thank you, Bon, very much. I assume you mean Andrea. But I'll take some of that. Liz met RBB in Spartanburg. Well, that's cool. You're one up on me, both of you. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, I'm. Do they want to be astronauts when they grow up? I have a friend who will remain nameless right now who has a granddaughter in front of whom he is not allowed to speak of the Earth being flat. But, we all of us came to the flat Earth without, most of us anyway, without having had someone in our lives who said, hey, don't take everything they're telling you as written, Although they tell you these things are accepted by the majority and therefore it's right, keep your own mind. And know that it's simple to say that the devil is at work here. It's simple to say that, I don't know exactly what it is, and I don't have this kind of like devil archetype in my mind. I think there is nefariousness, human or otherwise. And the scale of it is such that people cannot wrap their heads around it, that it's the whole of everything. Are people in some villages in Africa untouched by that? Perhaps, but the church has been sending out their preachers, and the scientists have been sending out their mosquitoes. You've heard about Bill Window's mosquitoes. Some kind of GMO kind of, oh, well, if you can't get around to the doctor for your monthly booster, then we'll just send in a swarm of stingers here, these mosquitoes, and they'll take care of it for you. We're not even going to charge you because it's kind of like a natural thing, so just think of it as like a little gift from Gates. Yeah. If he had erasers chucked at them, yeah. We had a little bit of that, but not so much. I mean, Andrew talks about more about that. But you see, they had the cane. The cane was so effective. The cane was so effective. I was kind of proud of, my track record. In my first year in high school, I had more than 100 lashes demarcated on the back of my tie. Every time we would get lashes, it would never be one. It would always be 2 or 4. 6 was the maximum. I never had a 6, but I had many of the 4s and 2s. So I don't know why they came in pairs. I don't know. You'd be like sentenced to 2 lashes or 4 lashes, and you'd have to go to the deputy head or the head of department or whatever. It wasn't the school. Generally, it wasn't the teacher who could dish out the lashes, because we were living in much more civilized times. And so, you'd have to go and line up at the dude's office and wait. Why are you here? Or you'd be sent out of class. You've been distracting people in the classroom, doing something that you shouldn't have done, trying to make jokes about the Earth not being a globe, perhaps. And you've been sent out of the class, and you have to stand outside the classroom door. And if one of the heads of department happens to walk down the corridors, and you're kind of shitting yourself, is he going to come, or she? Well, it'll be he. Is he going to come? And then they come, and right down to my office, and no questions. You just get a couple of lashes for that, just for being, for having me sent out of the class. So mark the tie. That was my most prolific a year of lashes. And I'd go home sometimes, I'd say, show my mother, I'd be like, Mom, look at oh, what did you do wrong today? It was just normal. But I'd have some welts still by the end of the day, Some were worse than others, and we did kind of sometimes, if we knew we were in line for a caning, maybe go with the extra underwear or something like that, try and reduce the sting. So those were the days, man. Trauma-based mind control, a more direct type action. Funny, I was thinking about trauma-based mind control because I have for years thought that, we were obviously told MK Ultra went away once it was discovered in the 70s, but of course not. It'll be like, okay, well, we'll have to shut down that shop, but we'll open up a new shop in quiet, and we'll, so we don't have to, say where the funds are coming from. We'll just use like some of NASA's spare because they're only building models in the basement. They're around at what's his name's house. Yeah. Oh well, you heard horror stories. Yeah. I mean, and funny enough, this is the interesting thing about conditioning is that I thought that was acceptable. I thought that was normal. That how else do you keep boys in line? In fact, they would often, not often, sometimes we would be offered a choice of staying after school in detention or taking the lashes. And because I was at a boys' school, you never took detention. You had to take the lashes. It was just part of the code. I mean, the shame of not being able to take the lashes would have been worse than the pain of that. And, detention was what, an hour extra on your day, So in life we often take a few lashes in lieu of saving a few hours in our day. Well, yeah, we won't get into all of that. Yeah, you wouldn't get away with that at all nowadays. I mean, I think we're going so far in either direction, where we're so frightened of people and children in the same space because of, and I don't know whether things are worse today, in terms of the child-adult trauma. Obviously, I would think that there's less smacking of children going on, but there are still children being beaten and panelled. And then when it comes to assaults of an unsavory kind, or more unsavory kind, some words are not really well received here on the tube. When it comes to that, I don't know whether it's worse today or it was worse 50 years ago. Some people might know that better than me. I know it continues to this day. And it may be, as someone else was saying earlier on about, these are often traumas expressed because of trauma received at some point. Doesn't make it any easier for any of the victims down the line, of course. But that's the world we currently find ourselves in. Again, you hear about these things in the news or whatever, or comes to your attention, and there's nothing you can do about it now. It's happened. But you can be the light and the bright in your environment. But yeah, when sometimes you'll have a moment where there's like an opportunity to have an interaction with a child, and we were in the park 2 or 3 days ago. This little girl, she's sitting on a fence 2 or 3 meters away from me. I was watching Zizi doing crawling through some bushes and stuff. It was pretty cool. And I guess her siblings are sort of in the same bushy area, and she's sort of sitting on this little fence and loses her balance and flips, well, it's instantly like flips over, head going backwards, and lands like on her back on the ground on the other side of the fence. It was a low fence, thankfully, and even though she was falling into the area of the hedges, which had some really strong, sharp branches, she thankfully didn't strike any of them. So she landed without too much fuss. But I mean, it's almost a meter in height, 800 centimeters in height, just over 3 feet, or just around 3 feet, a little less than 3 feet. Anyway, enough to have, like winded her and been quite a stonk. And my instinctive reaction was, because I was sort of standing on this bench trying to see where Zizi was, and she's over here 2 meters or so to my left off the bench and over. So my instinctive reaction is to jump there, and I'm over the fence. But before my hands make contact with her body, I'm like, okay. She's starting to get up, so I'm like, because normally if it had been my own child, I would have been like under their arms, lifting them up and blah blah blah. And in a previous reality, I think that would have been exactly how I would have just, even though she was a stranger, and maybe 7 years old, I suppose, seeing her fall over the fence like that, your instinct is to go and pick them up and help them. But before I made contact with her, I saw her getting up, and I'm thinking she's okay. I'm looking up there. The mother's at the top of the hill, and she's noticed her daughter, and I just kind of go, okay, she's okay. She's kind of busy getting up. But I didn't, and there is this kind of psychology going on here, which is messed up. Where we shouldn't feel like, oh, I'm coming in from the outside, therefore I am already tainted, guilty, by association with every other male on earth, or these few unfortunately damaged souls who find all of that somehow rewarding. Anywho, it's rather dark. I can't end this on the dark. Well, I'd have to agree with JT, the bear there. He says that allowing children to identify as animals in the classroom is more abusive than lashes. It's kind of weird, and I'm not sure what psychologists these folks have been listening to make them think that is to be encouraged. I mean, they're obviously, encouraging boys to think that they're not necessarily strictly boys, from quite a young age, vice versa. And I'm not really for that at all. Someone, I might have said this during the 6 hours in Speaker's Corner, but if someone comes up that way, homosexual, whatever, I'm like, okay, that's cool, and I got no beef with that at all, but I'm not comfortable with it being like so pushed, so kind of normalized, and I actually was much more in defense of that position. Go back 15 years, I was like far more like going along with the progressive kind of, mindset of all of that. And whilst I still absolutely think, live and let live, when we're young and so impressionable, then seeing other children coming into class identifying as cats is going to rub off. And also, yes, for that first individual, then, I just in the same park just a few days ago saw a little girl who had a tail on. And, maybe it's just a little bit of fancy dress, a little bit of fun, but I think there's something much more disturbing at its heart. However, JT, like the rat house experiment demonstrated, and I've mentioned a few times tonight, we must expect strange things, and it's kind of biblical actually. Sodom and Gomorrah. We must expect nature to sort of, in a way, lose her way in this period of time. Things are out of balance that you want to be a cat. So I'm not for that. Thanks for the hippie shake, for the links. I appreciate that. Yeah, Liz, it's coming from the top, and the teachers just comply, and they're not really. I mean, the older teachers, you say, "Oh, I'm not comfortable with that." Well, eventually they'll be like dinosaurs and pushed out. And also then, like it was, there are some examples of, it's like you'll be shunned, disciplined, blah blah blah, until you fall in line with that. Yeah, like you say, Hippie Shake, don't have a problem with someone who's gay. That's absolutely fine. And actually, I am much more comfortable celebrating that someone, in their adult kind of experience is that way. That's cool. That, I would never want someone to feel like, oh, well, because I did mention it last time, didn't I? I went and had a chat with that, at the Bournemouth thing, I went and had a chat with that guy who was dressed as a woman. He wasn't wearing a wig, just a skirt and perhaps a lady's shirt, a lady's top, and maybe even shoes of a lady. I expect they were ladies' type of shoes. But to inculcate it in the young. See, like for Zizi, it's same with like color. These things don't. He's not really perturbed by that. It's not a factor in his life. And if someone was in this way, that they were, let's say, a male who came in an effeminate kind of way, he would just accept them as that's how they are. That's the person that they are, but not need to be like concerned at all about what they, get up to when Roger comes home. The cabin boy. The Americans won't know that. Thanks for all you do, Dave. Well, thank you, JT, and I appreciate that. I got some great sessions of activism left in me this year. But our endeavor is to get back to South Africa and really try and get a toehold in South Africa this time. We slipped out last time in 2021, and we'd very much like to get to a point where, I did beautiful things, honestly. I mean, Andrea was by my side, yes, but I did beautiful things in South Africa with the people there. I'd like to continue doing that. But of course, I need to get a toehold in there, so that I can pay the bills and then build this dream of having a place where people can be and learn new things, learn different things. And then the world continues to, the citadel, as I said earlier, continues to become so rigid, so Saturnian, so tight, so locked down, then to you I say, can you find ways to mitigate such? Moral relativism. Moral relativism, it's like, and then, like the family, I feel like there's so, even in your own family, people are making justifying things, and I'm guilty of that. It's a difficult thing when you know, like, you know, you say, you know, you buy yourself a nice piece of meat. Maybe that's a little bit too extreme. I don't know. But the world is, yeah, the morals of the world are distracted. You know. So we forgive them, for they know not. I sound a little bit pompous like that. Sorry. That's not. Who knows what we know and don't know is you know, other than the basics of physics and our connection to something divine. That for me is unshakable. Came up on Sunday a few times. Unshakable. It's like we breathe air. God. And we are to be we are offered to be you know, the unadulterated, or the less adulterated you know, ambassadors of that, you know. And that is where the Jesus kind of thing is admirable, you know. However it all played out, that you know, this guy was so you know, and people have done it since, of course. I know that people have been offed for holding the truth and telling the story, as those who run the game don't want us to have it told. But that's a beautiful thing about it, isn't it? That, you know, but at the same time, we're here to have fun. I think so. Bottom line, in our family, we teach kindness, honesty, integrity, even when no one is looking, but show grace when possible if there is a slip up. Habitual lying or being mean earns discipline. Okay. My children know they are deeply loved. Well, I'm going to give you a heart for that. Yeah, so I can actually give hearts into this stream. Look at that. I can put hearts in there. And you guys can give me a thumbs up if you want. And I thank you, Run Boston Bear, for your continued Patreon support. You are amazing. Thank you for that. South Africa is beautiful, according to 33 Man, and of course I entirely agree with him. Pollution is just everywhere. He went to Bali and it was also polluted, a product of demoralization. I know. I find it like when people throw stuff down on the floor, I find that like, wow, how's that so easy for you to do? You know, I'm not like, you know what I mean? Sometimes you do want to say to someone, hey, please pick that up. I'm not that kind of a guy. I'm a bit, I'm not that, I don't enjoy confrontation. You wouldn't say that, obviously, in Speaker's Corner naturally, but I'm not going, I need, you know, the fire to be stoked. But South Africa is truly a beautiful country. I don't know why Donald Trump is paying it attention and all of that exactly. I have speculated as to why, but there's interesting plays. And of course, if the Earth is this, you know, disc type thing with a you know, a ring, or at least with a connection from South Africa to the outer place, then South Africa is a very important you know, landmark, which is why the Brits, you know, did their best to to beat up the farmers back in the early 1900s. They wanted the gold, and I saw a stat the other day that all of gold, if you look at all of the gold that has come out of the earth ever, 50% of it has come out of the area near where 333 lives, in the Witwatersrand. It's like this, thousands of square kilometers of escarpment, which is high. It's like over like a mile high, or whatever. And it's got all these veins. Back years ago, in the early days, when we were speculating about trees and things like that, I used to speculate about whether these seams weren't actually like roots of a particular plant. Excuse me, that had gone through a particular process, because the way that they drill down the shaft, and then they have these like branches that are coming off into. I went into a gold mine as a youngster, about a mile down, I think. So very hot down there, actually, very hot. Even at a mile, it's starting to get uncomfortable. But South Africa has the deepest gold mines on earth, and has vast wealth, or perhaps had. I don't know what the reserves are like still in the ground, but that vast wealth is taken by the Dutch East India Company, or the whoever, the same criminals, pirates who have controlled every element of pretty much the natural world, and dominate the use thereof, and the exploitation of the value of, which would be one of the things that I would love to see changed in the world, so that there could be more to go around and less need for taxation. Of course, I think all taxation is probably unnecessary, but that's another thing. Kenya came up for me in a conversation with someone the other day, actually, and it also made me think about it. It also made me think about Mount Meru in Kenya. You need to go and look at Google Earth on Mount Meru. It kind of matches the description of the Mount Meru that they give in the old texts about there being the center. And Kenya, you've got the Great Rift Valley, you've got Serengeti, rather, I think, the most naturally abundant place on earth. Some people say the Amazon, and maybe that's true. But anyway, just for me, one of the center places, if there was Eden, it would probably be like more like there than somewhere that was freezing cold. Be like, oh, well, I've given you Eden here, Southwest Eden, Sweden, or Edenland, Needlandland. I've given you that, or the other Eden, which is like, imagine it was like Jerusalem, where it's like raking hot. I've given you Eden, where all these things are growing in the raking hot, or in the freezing cold. No, none of those places are actually that pleasant. If you don't mind, I think I would rather be in Kenya, in the Serengeti. So I think that Kenya and these places are far more important, far more beautiful. So yeah, the Kenyan, there are amongst the Africans in the main are. And I'm not trying to knock anyone else off their perch either, but Africans in the main are such beautiful souls, right? Yeah, starve them and beat them and blah blah blah. You're gonna get all sorts of strong and unpleasant reactions. You sit on this side of the fence with a fancy car and restaurants 3 times a month or whatever, and they're like hungry most nights of the month. That difference is going to create tension, and that tension must be expressed. So, but in the main, the African people are beautiful souls, and I did say to this guy, the guy whose gardening I did, he's actually Jamaican or of Jamaican descent. And I said to him, you know, which I think is a little uncomfortable for say African or people who come from like the sort of 1600s, 1500s slave or 1700s slave mindset, you know, where like that's what was done to us and we're victims of that. And it's ever since then the white has subjugated the non-white. And I wouldn't disagree with that. But what I think is that that's like a telling of the story where it only kind of everything up until like that point, 1500s, 1600s, all like hunky dory for the white guy. No, no, no. The European was living naturally too, just like the African was a few hundred years ago. The European, if you go back maybe 500, years, maybe 1,000, I'm much more comfortable with the idea that these people were living far more naturally and then were enslaved. And they were the first, well, not the first, and it's not even a competition, but the Europeans, we were beat down such that who we are now are the survivors of those who had been subjugated, succumbed. The brave voices that spoke out, many of them would have been eradicated. And a woman who had knowledge and had an opinion would have been deemed witches and drowned. And if you survive the drowning, then you're definitely a witch, and then they'll do it again. Justified. So and then of course once we've been MK ultra'd, the Europeans, then we're prime and all circumcised, and then we're prime psychopaths to go and exact the same trauma upon others in the world in the 15 and 1600s. You know, it makes me feel a little uncomfortable, but you know, the truth is that we've all been for centuries screwed over. You know, I look out into the world, I'm like, this whole thing is a complete scam. Or maybe it's just the school, and that's how it's meant to be. But I do believe that it's a complete scam. And the idea that one group is more victim than the other is only because we look at it from the material kind of like, oh, you got the nice car and 3 meals in the restaurant and 4 holidays or whatever. We look at it from that perspective, and I think that's sorely missing the point, because we're here to become more beautiful internally, where there is no money, where there is no. Yes, money can make a whole lot of things more comfortable and so on and so forth. So I do not suggest that throwing all the money away or not seeking to have some is what we should be doing. But equally, we should not be valuing ourselves upon that means. Oh yeah, you want to Martin's more inland. Well, oh yeah, Martin is, yeah. You want to have a 420 with Martin? Yeah, he I picked him up from the station the other day, and we did a little 420 down on the beach, actually. Truth be told. But right now he's got his love with him, Cheryl, and so not much seeing of him at the moment. Gaining wisdom, nice to see you. No, my daughter did the cat thing for a while when she was 6 or 7. It would trigger me a little bit to fight it, but that felt like not the response for us. I didn't see it as a problem anymore. I saw he ran out of text they're gaining. So a child embodying their own imagination, and she naturally moved on. Well, I'm cool with that. I don't disagree. I think one of the things, like, say if Zizi is doing a thing that I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. I will try and like find a way to gently steer the boat a little bit away from that. And I'm hopeful. I'm glad that your daughter was able to kind of move on from that. And I suspect the majority of these little girls will. It's the same as, they might bring like a teddy bear or a doll in with them to school if that's allowed for the first few years. But after a time, they'll be like, okay, I can leave Dolly at home today. I'll be all right, and I'll tell her what I learned when I get home. So yeah, but I do wonder like how nothing kind of when one person does it, okay, fine. When like hundreds of people are doing it, it's becoming like a social trend. You do wonder what that's all about. Anyway. Yeah. She's not in public schools either. Okay. I'm proud for you. Pleased for you. Yeah, Bath is an awesome city. By the way, Bath has got so much evidence of mud flood. It's mind blowing. And I was thinking about Bath today actually because that kind of that excuse that comes up, which is that these buildings may have been built with the road 10 meters lower than it is now. However, cultural layers have built up over the centuries, and we just gave up the downstairs and moved in upstairs. And then because we lost downstairs, we put a little extra roof on the top. And because we lost downstairs, we had to break through this window here and make a gangway and then a door into that. And then some of our floors aren't on the right level, so we had to make a few adjustments here, a few adjustments there. We also built the most beautiful baths in Bath. I'm not sure that's what the original purpose was, but anyway, let's just go with the narrative. We built these beautiful, dug into the ground, beautiful baths, stunning. If you ever, walked around them, you'll see. And even there in Bath, they got this little old church there, in this square with a door that's like all the way up there. And these people were building all of these beautiful constructions, and they couldn't think about clearing away their own refuse from this front porch, for like 100 years. They never, like, no one ever went, you know what? Why don't we all in the street just agree to clean up this stuff this week? No, they couldn't do that. They had to give up the cultural layer and move upstairs. We're meant to believe that crap. We need to go to Bath again, Dave. Sven, my man, I thought we agreed we weren't going to speak about that kind of thing around here. There was no need to mention the royal bath, eh? Hey. Roger, the cabin boy. Semen stains. Yes, well, we do need to go to Bath again, yes. Yes, it was a while back. And actually, when I was in Bournemouth the other day, I had thought, had there been enough time, a bit more time, and it was nice for you to offer to put us in a 5-star hotel. I was thinking of doing some activism down there, but anyway, so it goes. Yeah, kidding. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that the litter box in the classroom. That's too far. Okay, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's like stepped over the line. You can have the tail, but you go to the toilet in a normal way. Just make sure the tail doesn't drop into the bowl, if you don't mind, because tabby cat with a little chocolate tail at the end there is not going to be welcome back in the class. But that is probably discrimination. So We'll have to let that shit ride. Yes, buy me a coffee at Hippie Shake. I mean, thanks Hippie Shake for suggesting people buy me a coffee, and please do give us a thumbs up if you don't mind. We got our girls in private school, but it's very expensive. Yeah, well, good for you, and it's nice that you have the ability to put them in a private school. Obviously, South Africa might be a little bit less expensive than a pounds thing, but you're paying in rands. Yeah, well, I guess I won't say anything on that. Well, I look forward to meeting you anyway. 33 man. It is interesting. Of course, I don't know what age they are, and it doesn't matter. But it is interesting, obviously, when the parents have gone flat. Like how does one offer that to your children without them necessarily being like the runt in the classroom who says the earth is not spinning? Who did I speak to the other day? I spoke to a young lady the other day, still in school, giving her classmates hell about the earth being flat. That's awesome. Yeah. Yes, Britain's gone crazy. You have a car from next Thursday. Well, congratulations, Sven. Welcome to the roads, and I hope it all goes well. Unicorn is an imaginary creature to the best of my knowledge. Coat of arms shows the crown chained around its neck. No, I mean, this is another conversation. I've got to let this call go, and I do appreciate you guys being here. However, I wonder about the unicorn. I do. I'm willing to accept that there's some creatures from a previous epoch that are not here, and who would surprise us by the way that they are. There's Tony Dixon. Why you come so late, mate? I'm on my way out the door, and you just turn up now. I guess I don't know what time it is for you, but it's good to see you. I will be in Speaker's Corner on Sunday, so I hope you can make it. Because, this... yeah, it was a good session. I'll leave it there.